I want to work in sustainability. And it's like, okay, well, that's like saying I want to work in the economy. It's a very difficult thing if you're being that broad. And I think they need to really think about why they're doing it as well, and what really drives them and what they're interested in. Because I think if you're doing it because you want to tell your friends, oh, well, look, I work in sustainability, then that's not the right reason to do this.
Yeah.
And, if I was speaking to someone who's 18 now and they're like, oh, I want to, have a job that's going to help with climate transition, I'd be like, all right, go be a heat pump engineer. That's probably not what they're imagining though. They probably want to go and work for a cool, startup doing something in, hydrogen. I don't know. So I think if I was speaking to people that are in their teens, I would probably question a bit about what route we're going down, especially with how quickly technology is adapting. What jobs will there be in 5-10 years that are sort of in the information economy? I think it's very difficult to project. We're definitely going to need people putting in heat pumps in 20 years.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to need people building the solar panels in the factories. I mean, there's those kind of things is where I would probably lean towards, even if it's not what people want to hear.
Ted is the founder of Residual, the company helping businesses measure, manage, and take responsibility for their environmental impact. With a background in climate and systems thinking, Ted built Residual to move companies from sustainability pledges to concrete, accountable action. Welcome to Reinventing Capitalism, the podcast where I, Claudia Thomas, decode the success of for-profit impact businesses through the stories of their founders. Our goal is to inspire you towards a purpose-driven career, because life's too short for boring jobs and soul-crushing corporations. Quick note before we get back to the episode. Just give me 30 seconds of your time. 2 things. The first is a huge thank you for listening and tuning into the show week after week. It means the world to me. And the second is that we are just getting started. If you enjoy what we do here, please join the 14% of people that listen to this podcast regularly and follow us on this app. I promise to do everything in my power to make this show as good as I can, now and into the future. Thank you.
Okay, Ted,
Hi.
the time has come.
Time has come.
From New York to London, we've managed to find some time to record this interview. Here we are. I guess let's just start from the beginning. You're from the UK. You studied in Edinburgh. How did your studies and your early career shape your passion for climate?
Yeah, I think one of the core things for me was probably the first job I ended up going into. So I started off my career in politics broadly, but in policy. So I set up the climate programme at a think tank in the UK called Onward. At the time, it was kind of the foremost think tank in the UK, quite close to the government of the day. And yeah, we raised the capital to do a project on that. And I think for me, it's always through that kind of policy lens. I think at its core, I care about the transition and climate change from a kind of a human-led perspective. So for me, it's about how can we sustain a world that really protects human lives and ensures you can make more people live the best lives possible, rather than climate purely in a kind of theoretical sense. And so I think for me, when I was in the policy world, it was also looking at it through that lens. So how can you complete this transition in a way that takes people with you along the way and can, use the market where possible, and how we can drive decarbonisation without kind of, stopping everything, banning everything. And so I think it was really that kind of policy beginning that steered it.
Yeah. Is it something very interesting, which is what drives you is to make people's lives better? Is that really it? When you think about what you're doing, it's about living the world in a better place. Could you be doing, is climate the medium? Could you be doing it through something else entirely different? How do you position that framing?
Yeah, I think you never know. I mean, I think there's a part of it that I was fascinated by this, and I went down this sort of rabbit hole of climate, and then to carbon, and then to carbon removal, and then to biochar. I've kind of gone and specialised in. But maybe if another path had been started, I would be kind of fascinated by another a sort of policy area that then would have driven me into that market. I think my point more about it being sort of a humanist is actually more on why do you care about climate change? And so we've done this actually as a team, is that we as an exercise have said on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being nature, the environment, the world, and 10 being humans, why do you care about tackling climate change? And for me, I'm quite close to 10, to be honest.
Okay.
I care about it insofar as it helps humanity and it helps sort of protect people's lives for as long as possible in a purely kind of just about nature and animals and the planet itself in a more kind of theoretical way is not kind of what drives me as much. I think all of it is important, and it's, that's why I'm never going to be on a 10 on that scale, but I think for me it is more about the kind of the impact on humans.
Yeah, no, I get it. Before getting into Residual, I think something that I always think is that with these new industries that we're creating impact, right? Like the products, the industries in climate, in health, in education, also come a lot of new roles and a lot of new opportunities, let's say. You had a role which is called Director of Carbon Removal.
Yeah, I think I was the only one in the world.
Only one in the world. What does that really mean? What was your day-to-day?
That is a very good question, and I think, my previous colleagues would probably ask the same question. But no, when I was in the policy world, I got fascinated by carbon removals. I was always spending my days looking over these net zero pathways, and there was always this kind of big wedge of negative emissions that no journalist was talking about, no politician was talking about, no one in my kind of policy world really was focusing on, and it was such a large part of our transition to net zero. And so I did a lot of work advising the UK government, trying to get them to change their tack on this area, and came to the conclusion that I was basically too impatient to work in the policy world. But at the time, I had written a bunch of pieces on direct air capture, on bioenergy, carbon capture and storage, on reforestation, all these different solutions to remove CO2. And my previous bosses, Tommy and Seb, had read the work that I'd done, and they were building out a team to focus on carbon removals, and they're like, who on earth in the UK cares
Could
or
do
knows
that.
about this? And you think this is niche now, which it is. Imagine how niche it was in 2021.
Yeah.
And so I went for a pint with Seb, and talked him through what my sort of thinking is on this. And they took a punt on a guy that spent his life writing research reports to come in and build a team that was purely focused on this area, and to build out the frameworks to assess carbon dioxide removal methods. And so B0, for anyone that doesn't know, where I used to work, is a carbon credit ratings agency. So think of it a bit like how S&P and Moody's operate in financial markets. They operate in the carbon market. And so my responsibility was to basically figure out what they were doing in the carbon removal space, because it was very, very niche back then, and it's now become a much larger part of the market.
Okay, what a cool job to just explore, right?
How
can we do this?
It was quite wild. It was great fun. I think I think my job at the very beginning was very different to my job at the end.
Yeah.
But they sent me to New York, and it was a brilliant place to work, and they gave us a lot of kind of freedom to build the brand of the business, but also our personal brands, and to learn a lot. So it was a great experience.
Yeah. So you've already given a bit of hints of how could that possibly turn into what you're doing now. So for someone who has never heard of Residual, what do you guys do in the simplest of versions?
We develop carbon projects. So when you think about let's say a real estate project being developed, we are like the kind of architects and the realtors. We're not the kind of owner operators. So we design projects and then we take them to market in very, very simple terms.
So who operates them?
So we partner with large agricultural firms, large industrials, and they own and operate, and we are their kind of joint partner in that.
So you're kind of like the strategic brand where you kind of ideate which could potentially be these reforestation projects, and then you find people, I guess, teams, partners that develop them.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Or operate them. It depends on the case by case. For some of them, we're working with a big paper and pulp manufacturer in Brazil, right? They know they want to develop a biochar project. They don't know how, and so they are like, okay, well, if we're going to design a high quality project and take it to market, how are we going to do this? We are experts on forestry and creating paper. We're not experts in developing a high quality carbon credit.
Okay.
And so they bring us in as a partner, and then we will basically think of us like the carbon side in a box, and then we take it to market.
And who are your clients?
So on that supply side, that we're our partners really more than clients, but they are big agricultural firms, big industrial waste producers, in some cases early stage project developers, people that want to develop carbon projects.
Okay, but is that how you make money through them?
So that's on the supply side. On the buy side, it's the buyers of carbon credits. So
Okay.
we're talking, in some cases, it's shipping companies, in some it's aviation. The tech companies in the US are actually the biggest buyers in this market. We've got banks as well, intermediaries that buy these credits. So yeah, carbon credit purchasers.
Do people buy them to offset their own emissions or as an investment?
So if you're buying credits, typically it's to trade those credits or to use them for your own retirements.
Okay. But to trade them, not to make money. It's still not an investment vehicle.
No, it is. So,
it is.
There's plenty of like intermediaries that essentially they're carbon traders. So they will buy up your inventory for this year, and then they bet that the price will increase in 2 years' time, and then they'll be able to sell it for a margin.
Yeah. And do you remember the moment when you were like, I'm going to build this?
I think it was probably quite a long churn, to be honest. I think the business spun out of a problem that I and my co-founder had identified in the market. And so when I was at B0, a lot of the projects that would come to me for ratings and to Laura for insurance, they had the kind of ingredients of what could have been a high quality project, but not the recipe to get there. And so a lot of them were creating kind of long-term liabilities instead of long-term assets. And this was primarily because of just a gap of knowledge between what they know and understand and actually what those buyers want, what the ratings agencies value, what the insurance providers value, what it takes to go through a registry. And so I saw this time and time again. And because I was a third-party ratings agency, they'd be like, Ted, can you help? Like, what am I supposed to do? And I'd be like, I know what you should do, but I can't tell you because we're a third-party ratings agency. And so for probably the last year I was there, I came up against this day in, day out, and it was very frustrating. And so it really stemmed from wanting to go and fix that problem. And I luckily had a good friend in the market who had previously founded a carbon insurance company, and she was identifying exactly that same issue. And we saw it particularly prevalent in certain project types, which we've built Residual around.
So would you say that you knew about the industry? Yes, but like, did you know about like the product that you were creating, or you had to learn while deciding that you were founding the company?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because for us, we are to our suppliers, the product really is our knowledge and expertise. And so in that vein, like we knew what the problem was and we knew how to address it. And that's sort of why we thought there was a market for what we were creating. When you're talking about the actual kind of core product that we have as a business, is really the software product that's being built. And so that is really how we are productizing our expertise. And so every project that we bring on, we're able to do the financial modeling or the carbon modeling or the PDDs in a better way every time we do it, and a quicker way. And that's really what Laura's running. She's doing the product build. And so that product, which we haven't sort of taken out into the market, is how we scale our business to as many projects and tons that we want to get to, but without having a team of kind of 500 people in sort of 5 years' time.
So
and so that is kind of the real game changer that is sort of already starting to use day in, day out. But we don't really talk too much about externally because, you know, for our customers and for our buyers, we deliver really high quality projects and we take them to market.
I'm thinking of more of a philosophical question here. I think like someone skeptic about climate or about solving the climate problem might think that you are offsetting a problem rather than solving it from scratch. How do you think of these argument? Like what would you tell someone that thinks like this?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is sort of stemmed from the historical carbon market, where, to be honest, the vast majority of credits were poor quality credits. And so there was a problem insofar as you're going to be going on a flight and you're going to offset your emissions, and they don't actually quantify to those exact replacements. So in my view, if you have a really high quality, low risk credit, it is a brilliant way to offset something that is hard to abate. So we are nowhere near getting to decarbonising aviation, as an example. This is what people understand, right? And sustainable aviation fuels, a number of different types of way to decarbonise aviation, in my view, aren't going to happen at scale, probably in our lifetime. I think it's always going to be too expensive. It's going to be very difficult to expand. And I think for that example, decarbonising through really high quality credits is the smartest and best way to do it. Because the reality is you're either doing that
Or nothing.
Exactly. And you're having those negative emissions or those avoided emissions, or you are doing nothing.
Yeah.
And actually, if you look at a lot of the data that underpins this, the companies that use credits and use high quality credits actually are better at abating their own emissions as well. And so there's plenty of companies that don't abate emissions and they don't buy credits and they do nothing. And actually the ones that typically buy the credits are also the best at reducing their own emissions.
Because they become more conscious about the problem?
Yeah, I think so. And look, if you're investing in a team to assess carbon credits, you clearly care about this topic.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's move into the concept of purpose. A concept that's very close to my heart. I think like we are in going through a crisis of meaning. Like the new generations are struggling to understand why they are here and why they should do what they do. Work has become kind of a commodity, like everyone needs to work. And so I guess it's kind of like our own decision. It's our own accountability and ownership to decide on what we want to work on. So how do you feel that it can help employees work for a company that is contributing to a problem that it's bigger than themselves?
Yeah, it's a big question. I mean, look, I have a slight luxury in the sense that I always worked in policy and climate. And so for me, I've never really had to deal with that reality if you're in a job and there isn't that kind of purpose driving you from the background. So I don't think I really quite understand how that feels, to be honest. And I think a lot of people will, I interviewed quite a few graduates who are looking at the space, and they kind of are, interested in, I want to work in sustainability. And it's like, okay, well, that's like saying I want to work in the economy. It's a very difficult thing if you're being that broad. And I think they need to really think about why they're doing it as well and what really drives them and what they're interested in. Because I think if you're doing it because you want to tell your friends, oh, well, look, I work in sustainability, then that's not the right reason to do this.
Yeah.
And, if I was speaking to someone who's 18 now and they're like, I want to, have a job that's going to help with the climate transition, I'd be like, all right, go be a heat pump engineer. That's probably not what they're imagining though. They probably want to go and work for a cool, startup doing something in, hydrogen. I don't know. So I think if I was speaking to like people that are in their teens, I would probably question a bit about what route we're going down, especially with how quickly technology is adapting. What jobs will there be in 5-10 years that are sort of in the information economy? I think it's very difficult to project. We're definitely going to need people putting in heat pumps in 20 years.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to need people building the solar panels in the factories. I mean, there's those kind of things is where I would probably lean towards, even if it's not what people want to hear.
So how do you change young graduates' mentalities? Because as you just said, like it's something that apparently there's going to be a lot of these jobs coming up, but it doesn't seem like they're very attractive to young talent right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there needs to be, I think of it through the British lens. There has been far
What does that mean?
I don't know, from when I was from in the UK,
yeah,
they have promoted this idea that every young person should want to go to university. And they were very proud when 50% of young people went to university. And look, I went to university, it was great. I think it's a great thing for people to do. But I think teaching people that they grow up and everything they should do, they should all go and get a degree, go and do this, do what I did in the 90s, because that's what, it's not the world we live in anymore. And I think there needs to be probably a culture shift. I'm thinking about the UK in this. I think probably you can use it in other places as well. There needs to be a bit of a culture shift of teaching young people about what options there are. And look, I've got family and friends that are electricians and plumbers and have sort of very different jobs to if you go and work in the city or me going and working in policy, and they all make way more money than any of my friends that have gone into the city. And so I think that kind of reality of the modern world needs to be sort of expressed, I think, to young people.
Yeah.
Because I think going and doing some types of degrees at not very good universities that load you with loads of debt is maybe not the best choice, and maybe 25 years ago it was seen as the best choice.
No, I totally agree. Like we default to what we know and what has worked in the past, it's very, very hard to accept that things are changing. Like as humans, we reject change. But yeah, like I guess I think like you have a great point there, and I totally agree. I think like that's the beginning, no, of how you change. Have you thought about like what can be these alternative then for these young people? What would you recommend, right? Like if you're like talking to your, let's say, younger cousin, what would you tell him?
I'd say if you're not getting into a top uni, go and do something else. Maybe go and do apprenticeship, maybe learn, go into further education in other areas. Maybe you start a business, everyone's an entrepreneur these days. Like, maybe think a bit more innovatively about what you can do that isn't the kind of traditional route. I just think there is, even from when I was that age, the world's changed. And I don't know, if I was that age again, whether I'd do exactly the same. I think in the modern world, it moves so quickly. Maybe by the time you've finished a sociology degree,
maybe like, what are you gonna do? No, I agree, and it's quite scary at the same time. Like I think, like we have a lot of options, but at the same time we know that the options that we envision for ourselves might not be there when we graduate, or like whatever, in 5-10 years time. So I think it's really, really hard to make decisions these days.
I agree. I think the things that continue to be really important is the people side of work. And I think I don't foresee a world in which we're ever really going to remove that kind of person-to-person importance. And so whenever anyone's saying, oh, I want to get into this, or I want to do that, I'm just saying go for as many coffees as you can with anyone you want. I mean, if you ask all these people and you say, oh, please can I have some advice? 9 times out of 10, they want to give advice, and then you build that relationship, and then you say, oh, well, can I speak to anyone else you think I should speak to? And then suddenly
you have a full network.
Yeah. Like I think the most jobs I've ever got have been through,
people that
coffees, and doing it that way. So
absolutely,
that is what I would suggest, to be honest, more than anything.
Absolutely.
Hi, can I ask you a quick favor? Every week we dive into the stories of founders that do more than just make money. Our mission is to prove that a career in impact can be both purposeful and financially sustainable. If you believe in creating meaningful work, share today's episode with one friend who's ready to make a difference. It would mean a great deal to me. Your support is what keeps this show alive and growing. Thank you.
And if we stick to the vertical of climate, do you think that people need previous knowledge to get into climate?
I think there's so many roles, right? Like, I mean, I just hired for a founder's associate role. We've got a brilliant person starting in January to take that role. He does have some experience in climate, but it was not a prerequisite of the role. So we wanted someone that was super passionate, like hungry, ability to work in a fast pace, personable, like, creative. And the climate, like, we've got a whole science team. I mean, we've got climate geeks for
that.
days. So we didn't need that. And I think in any business, like even at B0 where I used to work, there was a team of 30, 40 commercial leads that none of them had any. One was selling, I think, insurance the week before, and now they're selling carbon ratings. So I really don't think that's necessary. I think if you want to go into the technical side and work on climate science, you obviously need climate science degree. But for the most part, if you're working in engineering or data or sales or marketing, it really doesn't. You don't need it. Like, it's like any business. You don't need to be an expert in it.
So guys, skills are transferable. Everyone will go work into climate.
It's true. It's true. I had, when there was the tech sales boom after we left university, and I knew a lot of people that went into tech sales made a lot of money. And then that kind of collapsed. And about sort of 3 years ago, my WhatsApp was just pinging off with tech sales leads being like, what do you think about climate tech? I can't get into climate tech. And most of them are now in climate tech businesses.
Climate tech sales.
Exactly. So
you were just you just mentioned that you've hired for a founder's associate. You're a first-time founder, right? How is it? Like, is it what you were expecting, or what has been like the expectation versus reality?
Yeah, I'm not sure you ever really know what to expect when you're doing something like this. It's so hard to envisage in a lot of ways. But I think broadly it probably is. I think people, before you start a business, they're like, oh God, it's so hard. Oh, it's so high risk. Oh, it's going to be, it's going to be tough. Are you sure you're going to do this? And they really try and put you off. And that's, I had previous founders as well that did the same thing. And I think, at least so far, people underplay how fun it is and how much, like, it is just an amazing thing to do, and how much the day-to-day it's like, I work, probably twice as many hours as I used to, but it is so much more satisfying, and I do get a lot from it. And look, I think it's stressful as anything is, but I think it's a lot more fun than people assume. And I think in the modern world, I would implore anyone to like really think about it. If they have that kind of itch to scratch and they've got some ideas, especially in the UK. Like I set the business up in the US, and that was sort of in part because I was there, but in part because I do think it's a better place to build a business. And I think that's culture mostly. And like to people in the UK, when I was like, oh, I'm going to start a business, they were like, oh wow, really? That sounds terrifying.
That
Why
culture
would you do
of
that?
like not really like pushing you forward. Like you only find that in the US. We have the same in Spain.
My American friends like, dude, you're gonna
For
smash
sure.
it. To the moon, man. I do think that is like in the UK. I'd love like more and more people to want to build stuff here. I think it's the government's making it harder and harder.
Yeah.
But I think there's still London is the best place in Europe in my view to build a business.
I'm surprised that you say that people underplay how quote unquote fun it is to be an entrepreneur. I feel that like everywhere on social media, you see how like being an entrepreneur, it's the only way out. Like I feel that we're very encouraged to do our own thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure I kind of see that on my algorithm.
Really?
I don't know. I feel
like all podcasts, all business podcasts are about like how to like get away from.
I suppose you're right. Yeah.
From the structure that we're in, how to like stop working for someone, make money for yourself. Like I do feel that it's a common, like a common ground where we're sold the dream. Like I feel in my view at least it has been the opposite. Like. Interesting. Be an entrepreneur, like it's amazing, you're gonna make money, you're gonna work for yourself, but then actually like
you won't make money. At least not for a while.
Exactly. And it's much harder than what it is. It's also more fun than what it is. Like it has both, like sides of the coin. But in my case at least it has been the opposite.
I think what I'm thinking about more is like when I was thinking about it and I asked lots of people advice, because I think that's what I tend to do. I ask many people what they're thinking about it. Or when I told people once I'd done it, the kind of very strong message mostly in the UK was, oh God, it's very hard. Oh God, no, it's obviously it's very hard. And like but it's more I think they don't say it is very, very hard, but it's incredibly satifying and I really enjoy it. Less so. I think maybe I spoke to people when they were, in the middle of crises, who knows. But I think it helped. I mean, my dad was an entrepreneur. My sister's an entrepreneur. I think I was also surrounded by my brother-in-law as well as
You've seen it firsthand.
Entrepreneur. So I had a lot of people that had done it, and I'd seen all of the chaos and stress as well. So I was like, okay, it can be a lot. And so I think my expectation was more pain than it has been thus far. Look, I'm sure there will be much more pain to come, but I think for now it's been, I think, a more enjoyable experience than I expected.
That's amazing.
I think that's mostly because of the people I work with, but I do think we've managed to hit the ground running.
Yeah. Why do you think the people that you've hired have decided to work for you?
So I think the first hire you make is so important in these businesses. I think like it can absolutely destroy
change the course.
Yeah. And we had the most exceptional first hire, which was Mark, our head of science, and I knew him for a while in my previous role, and we were friends, and so I sort of knew that he was sort of interested in when I said I'm working on something new, I could sense he was kind of interested in it. And so I think for him it was about working in our space with people that genuinely are focused on integrity of what we're doing. And I think the kind of broader motive that drives us was kind of the central thing for him, I think. And I remember when we were having that discussion, he was like, well, if this scenario comes up and we've got to make that trade-off, where do you sit? And Laura and I were very honest. And so I think that's really key. I think that Laura and I choosing to work with each other was obviously like a shoot in the dark at the end of the day. Like we were friends and we knew each other, but nowhere near as well as we know each other now. And we've been so lucky that it's been a success, but I know plenty of friends where it hasn't. And so I think there's a certain part of you just got to follow your gut. I think with those kind of first hires, or even like your co-founder, the biggest choice, right? And then with other people that work for us, I think the backgrounds of us three now, Mark, Laura, and I, and the kind of, we do have a sort of a reputation that we've brought with us to the business, does definitely help in attracting talent. And I think people are really driven by the kind of overarching mission of what we do.
Okay, so it's a combination between you guys, your experience, and probably like your zest and your passion combined with the industry that you're in. I'm also curious to know what has been the hardest part of working for yourself, because I feel that being a first-time founder, you come from being told what to do, what are the success metrics, like what you should focus on, to suddenly having to decide this for yourself.
Yeah.
What has been the hardest part?
Yeah, I think if you the thing is I did work for people, but I was pretty much left up to my own devices. I think if you asked either of my previous employers, they kind of were just
they didn't know what you were working on.
I don't want to manage him. Let him just do his thing. And so I think...
I'm quite curious to speak to them. They don't know what a director of carbon removal is. They don't know what you did.
So I think I was always very self-propelled.
Okay.
I didn't ever respond well to micromanaging. Not that anyone ever tried, to be honest. And
they wouldn't have succeeded.
No, probably wouldn't have succeeded. I think what is nice about it that is new is that I'm not like constantly thinking, what's the next thing? Because I think when I'm in jobs, I'm like, yes, this is great, I love this, but like I was always slightly on maneuvers, thinking about what I want to do next. And so I think it's really nice to be like content and building something for the long run, which is great. But I think I've probably gone off your question.
No, just what's the hardest part? Like, because when I always ask that question to kind of reflect on my own experience. And for example, I find very hard to understand whether if I've been productive or not. Like I have 8 hours in a day. Probably I work many more hours, but have I been productive? Not. Could I have worked more than what I have? Could I do things faster? Like, it's just hard because you put your own pace. So I think that I guess that's where the question was coming from. Like what is something that it's just hard to self-manage, I guess.
I don't think I've ever really struggled with that. Because I'm like a very impatient person, and so I will I want to get it done like yesterday always. And so and my job as well, like I lead all the external side of the business, and so I'm on calls 5 hours a day, and then I'm doing follow-ups, and then like it's very much like I'm just
doing.
Yeah, and so it's a pretty like fast-paced environment, and like I try and get a lot done every day, and I haven't struggled so much with that. And I think, look, when you have a co-founder and you have employees that rely on you as well, sure, they're not your managers, but like you all have obligations to each other as well, and that drives you forward.
Got it. We are getting to the last part of the interview, which is about the future and how where we are will shape where we're going. How will AI and blockchain shape the industry?
Yeah, I think maybe we'll split those up. Blockchain, in our market, there has been, I can name you 10 companies that have tried to, tokenize and through blockchain use it. I mean, fundamentally, it's not the problem we're solving is about creating high quality supply and creating high quality demand. The actual sort of tokenization blockchain element, I think, is never going to be a kind of a central piece of our market. Maybe it becomes something at some point. I don't think it's that important for what we do.
But can it not be like a technology that is a medium to bring liquidity to the market? So like what you are doing, for example, wouldn't there be a world where these carbon credits or these projects are tokenized, so it becomes kind of like a marketplace in itself?
People have tried. I think it's too early at the moment. Okay. Maybe it gets to that stage. I think it's a lot of those. It's kind of finding a solution where there isn't a problem, to be honest, for what we do. I think AI will change a lot of what everyone does in every industry.
Absolutely.
But I think at the crux of it, we are in a development business. It's big, clunky infrastructure. We're building a rainforest. We're doing a big industrial project here. I mean, these are things that you can't just sort of use Gen AI to get out of. I think if we get to like super intelligence, who knows? All bets are off. I can't even envisage what that looks like. But I think in as much as the current sort of software tools that implemented AI, for sure. I mean, look, I use AI every few minutes, right, at work. It means I can run a team of a commercial unit, which is just me. Probably 5 years ago, I would have needed 3 or 4 people.
For sure.
And so like that's amazing, especially if you're starting a business, you can keep costs down, you can grow. It's brilliant. I think, this is sort of a side point as well, is AI will change, I think, the demand for what we do, just because of the data center usage. So if you look at these hyperscalers, they are they all have these net zero targets. They all have emissions going through the roof. And look at Microsoft, biggest buyer in the world. They're like 2xing their targets. And I think we'll see more
of
and
carbon
more of that.
removal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they still want to hit their targets, but they want to expand this out. And so I think that's a really interesting thing to keep an eye on.
It's like the blessing and the curse. You know, like these AI companies like are the curse, and then you have the carbon removal, but like it's all about offsetting. Like it's not about, you know, like changing how many emissions will be needed. It's crazy.
I know. I mean, that's the thing. It's like there's a part of it where the data centers which create the emissions, which create the AI, maybe the AI ends up cleaning up the mess at the end of the day. So, you know, when you look back in 300 years, it was like, oh, that was right, because then you could fix climate change through superintelligence. But
I always think about AlphaFold. AlphaFold it's an AI model that does protein prediction. It's owned by Google, and basically through them they've been able to predict a lot of like protein sequences that has the potential to solve, you know, like a lot of illnesses, cancers, etc., etc. I wonder if that would exist with climate change, like something that AI could, like, I don't know, crack the code for. I have no idea, but like something that would
nuclear fusion.
I
mean, who knows? You know, with AI, I mean, like there's that is the you know, if say you crack nuclear fusion, suddenly you can then have, you know, limitless free energy for everything. You could even have direct air capture units that aren't going to cost you thousands of dollars a ton. There's a lot that could be done with that, and that would be a big tipping point. But I don't know. I think it's very hard to even. It's hard to even imagine. Like if you spoke to someone in 1990 and you tried to explain, like, try and predict the internet or predict social media, the fact that we all stare at screens all day.
Yeah,
like,
they would have
what
never.
on earth?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So in 30 years, who knows?
So it's magic. Basically, we can't know what's coming.
Yeah, but I'm hopeful. I think I do have. Look, I think with climate, we're seeing a kind of a retreat right now, geopolitically, and we do see this. True. There's always a sort of a to and a fro. We're witnessing a retreat right now. I think it will swing back in time. Who knows how long that does take? And I do have faith in the long run that humanity and like humans and people can find the solutions to this. And I think what we're attempting right now is telling people, you've got to do X, Y, and Z to safeguard the planet in 30 years' time. It's a very hard thing for humans to do that. It's very unusual. I don't think we've ever done anything like it. We're trying to transform the entire economy in something that doesn't really affect you tomorrow. And so I think it's worth kind of appreciating the successes as well. I mean, like in the UK, we've halved our emissions since 1990 while growing the economy by 85%. I think it's quite amazing that, you know, I think if you'd said that 20 years ago, people would be amazed. So I think I have hope, but it's a tough time right now.
Yeah, it's a good point. We forget about all our achievements, which is crazy. But like, it's so interesting how we react to fear. So like all the news, like all the information that we receive comes from a place of fear. And you're right, like there's a lot of, you know, like positive advancements that you know, like that have changed how we do things and what we've achieved that are nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Okay, so last question. If, you know, you want to leave the listeners with one mantra, let's say something about their career or climate or, I don't know, your own experience, what is the one thing, that you want to leave listeners with? Well, mantra, thought, reflection, can be anything.
Go for coffees with people.
It's really this is a very understated. Yeah, it's a very understated thing to do. Honestly, I agree.
Yeah, we had a coffee in New York.
Yeah, we did, and here we are. No, it's true, because like a coffee leads to another coffee, and then like that's how you start like growing your network. And also like I think we've also lost touch with coffees, as in a virtual coffee is not the same as a coffee.
No.
So. Agreed. Go get coffees with people in person.
Yeah. And I would say when you're young, go and live in like a mega city. Go live in London or New York or San Francisco or, you know, Paris. I think like that is where the action is. In your 20s at least, I'd just like go there and have endless coffees.
So go to a mega city and have endless coffees. I love it. Thank you so much, Ted. I've enjoyed a lot of our conversation, had a lot of fun during the interview. I'm so happy we managed to make it happen here in like this amazing room in London. So thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.